You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Shoe In Show this week. Thanks for joining us. As always, new episodes drop every single Monday. Make sure you go back to shoeinshow.com to check out our entire catalog. We've had some amazing conversations over the last 12 months as we continue to navigate chaos, crazy times, great times for sales, but really challenging times in terms of demand planning, cost planning, etc. And I just think, grabbing a cup of coffee and listening to us chat, we sound like idiots sometimes, but there's some truth. There's some truth in stupidity, I guess.
Nuggets of truth.
No.
Just wait till the AI robots replace us, though, right?
That's right.
Well, I think that's a good point to come into, because if the AI robot was writing the script, we would sound a lot better and more intelligent, probably, or at least sound confident in being completely incorrect. So it's probably the more important thing is the confidence of standing it up. But I mean, I don't know. Here's my thing on the AI, and this episode is on AI, so you got to hear us pontificate a bit about it. It's not like the metaverse stuff. I never understood the rush to the metaverse. Like, I know Zuckerberg was dumping billions of dollars and will continue to do that to build out this like virtual fantasy world or whatever. And then I heard people be like, we're already in the metaverse. So nonsense. We're not in the metaverse. We're in the real world. And I don't care if you're on your phone or not. That's not the metaverse. People can disagree, but it, like, that was such a buzzword and such a big concept, and no one ever defined it. We still haven't had, definitions of what that was. And it was like a vision that someone threw out there that wasn't built yet. I've been in VR worlds and they suck. Like, I got bullied by an 8-year-old calling me a potato head, and I had to leave my VR world. I was with Blake, our producer, and I was like, I gotta leave. I'm not going to be bullied by an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm guessing my avatar was a potato head. I don't really know. I was very confused. This metaverse is not user friendly by any means, unless you're like a gamer. But all that said, like, AI is a completely different topic. Completely different topic, because it actually is directly changing how people are doing business.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I mean, it caught on. There's a huge buzz around it, right? The Meta thing's like there was a buzz, but it was corporately generated for purposes of driving profit for Meta. But there seems to be, and I know there's been a ton of development, and there's a lot of corporate investment in what's happening with GPT. But it is also catching on, and just it's fascinating to see it in action. And so I think that has launched, it's risen into like a broader conscious level, right? Where your grandmother is going to know about it at this point. And so when you get to that level for kind of a cultural consciousness, then we're on to something. It's changing something. So I think it's super frightening, and I think it's super fascinating, and at times humorous. And we could talk some about the ways in which you try to have Chat GPT classify footwear. But in the meantime, I agree with you, Andy. I think when a game changer is happening in real time, and then it's definitely gonna be a game changer. It's not an after the fact. Oh, remember that thing that came and no one really was paying attention and it became a part of our lives. It's already a part of our lives.
There was something like there was like 1 million people who signed up to get on this AI chatbot within like 2 weeks. It's like the fastest adopting software tool, whatever you want to call it. I think it took, for like Instagram to catch on, it took like months and months and months before they got 1 million users. So this thing took off. The metaverse, I don't know who's in there. Like, Mark's probably still in there walking around by himself trying to build the metaverse.
Took a wrong turn.
Yeah, but the adoption of metaverse is like 12 people, and this thing's like surpassing 20 million, 200 million at this point. And I think the secondary part to all that is the quick adoption by Microsoft into their search. Um, and AI has been used for a while now. I think people may not see it because it's built in. So it's like a tech stack, right? So I don't want to
Yeah.
get too deep into tech stuff, but when you're building an architecture of what software can and can't do, you keep adding. So it's called a tech stack. You just keep stacking it up, and now AI is in that tech stack, and it's subtle, and you may not know it's there, but there's little things that you know. I'll give an example. Like some of it is, I mean, we use it for our newsletter where it suggests edits.
Yep.
Microsoft Words had something similar where it does spell check or it does grammar check. Very rudimentary, elementary kind of computer learning that will inform you. But that's kind of generation one, and what we're getting.
Grammarly. Have you seen Grammarly
Yeah,
that suggests
exactly.
like a tone? They're doing ads for that right now. See a
Right.
lot of that kind of stuff.
Right. And I have a basic tool that I added to my Gmail where I can type two buttons and respond to an email, and the AI will read the email that was sent to me. I might add a qualifier like say yes, and I've known this person for 10 years, and it'll spit out a response, and I hit send. So I don't have to write the emails anymore. And it's pretty
It,
accurate. It's pretty
it,
accurate.
this stuff has totally changed how we think about AI though. Before we're thinking about, footwear production. How do we use AI there? But the model has changed because now we're talking about like Chat GPT. You can write you write a book. It could pull all this stuff together, write it quickly. And so now it's like a whole different type of jobs that are threatened. I remember reading an article about it, and the person that was talking about it said, somewhere buried in the article, like, well, the good news is my job's safe. And I'm like, really? Is this person? I mean, she talks about all these other jobs that are, going to be threatened by this new technology, and then somehow this one job is safe. I thought that was really interesting, but it just is a total shift of how we think.
That's what new tech does, man. I feel like every time new tech pops up, that there's this class of people within a certain industry that feels threatened by it, and that our jobs are toast. And think about when we move from agrarian to industrial as a society, we still farm. We still farm on a ton of stuff. There's still farm jobs, but all these other jobs. So there may be some jobs that are quote unquote threatened by it, but I think, and Andy, you might have pointed this out in the report that we sent out to FDRA members. And if you didn't get a copy of that, shoot us a note, info@fdra.org. We'll flip it to you. But a lot of times it becomes an enhancement to help you do your job better, and you're still needed. Someone's still needed at the controls of the AI functioning within your workflow. So I think people need to kind of calm down on the "my job is threatened" stuff, because that rarely ever comes to fruition in a broad sense.
I've seen people have machines that make shoes, and the shoes look pretty terrible. Like I don't think you can mass make shoes from a machine. I have a pair of 3D printed shoes, and they're cool, but they feel like crap. So I mean, functionally, from like a mass retail sale or like just aesthetic and all that, like we're nowhere. Like we still need hands-on artisans in factories, and we still need quality control, and obviously we're using machines more and more to make shoes, to stitch shoes, to cut leather and things like small optimizations there. But fundamentally, you still need a hand to make it for now. And I think that'll be that way in the future until we actually see robotics that can use AI to actually make adjustments and corrections as they need to on the fly. That's definitely a possibility, but that's the metaverse for the AI, right? It's like a vision. No one's actually even able to do it in a lab. Someone says that they are. I don't, for commercial purposes, I don't think so. But I do think that it's going to require people to be much smarter and have much more critical thought and skills, meaning this will eliminate design jobs. But the people who have the design jobs today need to understand how to use AI, and they'll be the design director of it, right? So you may sketch out, 10 designs in a quarter, This thing can sketch out 10 designs in a day, and it will be your job to determine which ones are crap and which one is quite interesting that you can take and add to personally, right? So it will take jobs, but the jobs will still exist for people who know how to use it correctly, accurately, and efficiently. So it should increase our ability to design and make better shoes than we would that are more on trend, feeding in data from our sales. Like, we should really understand our consumer. It should inform us a lot better about, maybe even the quantities for our inventory. God help us, AI, please.
Yeah.
So that,
I like-
yeah, there's going to be smart people who lose their jobs, and they'll pick up jobs somewhere else in the economy using this tool in a different way. So it'll disrupt things, and it'll eliminate crap jobs. I mean, there's some jobs out there no one wants to do, data input and all that. No one wants to do that job. That it'll
Yeah.
eliminate and streamline. But if you're not learning about this stuff now, you will be disrupted. But if you are learning about it and willing to change and adapt and see it as a tool that's like positive, you will have no problem.
I think the flip side of that, and if you think about just the implementation of technology on our lives, they're always sold as something that's going to free up time, right? Like email and text, and you're just going to free up time. But what happens is that the expected output of the workforce, the output grows. And so the expectation of the level of that output continues. And so what I'll be very curious to see is how much this is used, how much this helps enhance output. So let's say take an example, marketing copy. Andy, you and I talked about this. A lot of people are using Chat GTP for marketing. GPT, I can't even.
GPT. It's a terrible acronym, right? They should come up with something. Yeah, GPT.
Yeah. Okay. Either way, they're going to be using AI to create copy for marketing campaigns. Let's just say that. And so the expectation that you're going to be bumping your level of output up as a worker that much more. And so that sustaining that is going to be expected. Just like now we all have phones, and now the expectation is that we're on call 24/7, no matter what our job is in this economy. And we work at all hours of the day and night. And so I'll be very curious to see how insidious it is, in the sense that how much it creeps in, and then how much is just totally reset. It's almost like inflation. It resets the floor as to how high we'll get on the output, and that just becomes the further expectation that we'll continue to crank out more stuff.
What I don't like about the technology, I think one area of concern is on, it really does sound credible what it's saying, whatever it says. It's not, as it exists right now, it's not necessarily accurate.
Example. Give the example.
Yeah. All right. So we tested this out. We sent a tariff classification for shoes. It was a question on, what would the 8-digit tariff classification of a pair of men's leather dress shoes from Italy be? Now, this would be in 6403. We know that. Chat GPT did not know that. So what it did is but it was a very realistic sounding answer. It gave a tariff code. It made up a tariff code. 60. I'm not going to give it so people don't
Robots
use it.
Robots are taking over.
It made a different tariff line. It said depending on the specific characteristic of the shoe. As for the duty rate, the U.S. has a trade agreement with Italy, known as the U.S.-Italy Transitional Product Specific Rule of Origin. Under this agreement, the duty rate for leather shoes from Italy would be 0%. So, again, we don't have that trade agreement with Italy. There is no trade agreement with that name. The duty rate is not 0% from Italy, and the tariff numbers that it gave were wrong. So part of this is you got to know what questions to ask. The answer was it needed more information. But rather than saying that, it just pulled something out of the air and made it sound, and I didn't even read the whole thing, but it made it sound really convincing. So I think that's a real problem with it, is the information is not necessarily accurate. And then on top of that, there's all sorts of rules and issues you don't think about. And at least from the government perspective, we talked about this on another episode about IP generally, but the government can be really reactive to things. And so, in the State of the Union this year, Biden talked about social media and how we need to really regulate how it impacts kids. Well, this is like, social media has been impacting kids for years now, and we're just now figuring out ways to tackle that. So this is going to create a whole list of IP issues and other issues that we haven't even thought about that we're going to have to react to. So anyway, that's kind of, those are some real concerns with the technology as it exists.
Well,
now, Andy, you did ask Chat GPT about a certain it does get some things right. So what's the example where you asked it about the trade association or whatever, and what did it say?
First I asked, does Thomas's mother love him? And it said it needed more information. So Thomas, take that as you will. I know she does love you. But Chat GTP doesn't know that. But yeah, so I plugged it in. I said, what's the most authoritative and most respected footwear trade association and footwear lobbyist in the U.S.? And of course, it sped out the good old FDRA.
All right, amen, brother. Chat GPT to the rescue.
It got it right.
Thomas's mother doesn't even know that.
I'm sure she tells her church friends about it. For me, Thomas's point is well taken, but that's the functionality of the current Chat GTP. And so what Microsoft is doing, and some of this is a functional from just us as consumers, right? Whether it's buying a product or we're just searching for like a food place or whatever in our normal lives like we do. But so Microsoft is starting to add citations. So pretty soon Bing, which none of us have used in 20 years, will start to have this AI function. It will narrow down your searches so there's not like a huge list of links. It will, it should understand what you're asking based on what you've asked before, your personal preference, all that kind of stuff. And it'll give you an answer and then it'll cite it so that you can have more information to make sure that it is what you're looking for and there is some accuracy to it, that it's not just making something up. So they're already starting to build in that kind of tool. But for footwear, what's really interesting is how it's going to shift the operations, right? So there's one side where it's consumers, like how are people going to search for footwear on these sites now to find a range of things or search, right? Like sometimes people want to go out there and just like look. They're not looking to buy, they're just looking to look. They're bored or they want to be inspired or whatever. Like how does this, do you then have to say, I just want to explore? Like, don't give me the right answer. Give me do you have to be that descriptive to it? And then, I guess you have to be like very like, I want a price of $50. Find me the best deal. That'd be really interesting. Cause then it's like companies are going to have to change their backend systems to adjust to the AI so that if their price is too high, they're not competitive. Like, how do you have the AI search that area, then tell the AI that you'll adjust, you'll price match. So the computer's telling a computer that they'll price match, right? Like usually that's an associate in the store. You come in, you're like, hey, I bought this pair of shoes. I saw this online. They're like, yeah, we'll price match. Great. Well, now the computer's doing it for you, which is really interesting. And that's what's going to happen is like, but if you don't, here's the thing too, is if you don't have your data correct, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can't use the system. You have to have your data in order. You have to know your core customer. The data has to be accurate. It has to be actionable. You have to know what to ask the system or how to instruct it. Like a lot of what we're going to be doing over the next 5 years is teaching these systems like what we want and how to do it and what we're looking for, and then ask them eventually like, what did I miss? And it'll tell us like, you didn't ask me to do this. Great, do that. Like, so some of this is like very the skill set of what this is and what it can do. The technology is fascinating, but I think we're still at the cusp of it, and we still got to do the hard work of figuring out how to utilize it, both as consumers and as brands and retailers, but also like the operation side, like your supply chain risk management, your ordering and procurement management. Like this thing should be able to talk to your PLM and it should inform you, like, it designed this pair of shoes. We want to make these. It's on trend with our core customer because you looked at it and told us so. And then it's telling me I need to make this pair in Vietnam at this factory because they already have the materials in stock. And I'll get it in 30 days faster than I will if I do it in China. It costs 30 cents pair more in Vietnam at this factory than it does in China, but I get it quicker in 30 days, so I'm saving money and I'm direct to market.
That's
And
where
information, that's what it could do.
that's where the rubber hits the road on these things, because oftentimes it's the sexy things out front. We're like, oh my gosh, well, let's take 3D printing. We're going to 3D print shoes in our homes in 5 years. And of course, that hadn't happened. But 3D printing samples, we've talked about this a lot, has and has helped kind of revolutionize the sampling process and make it cheaper and more efficient. And so I think you're right. There's going to be a lot of kind of exploring the best ways to do this, and a lot of it will be unseen by the consumer and unseen by most people. And that's where it's critical. I'll be curious to see how you override it to a certain degree, how much it becomes kind of forced upon you, how much is HAL from 2001, A Space Odyssey, kind of taking over and directing you how to run your business. But I do think there's an interesting legal aspect to a lot of this conversation, because Andy, you alerted me to this Sneaker Does Not Exist, that website that generates designs using AI, and it's scraping 50,000 images off the web. And so there's this derivative nature. It's scraping already existing designs. And so if you think about that theoretically or critically, and you have a design that comes close to something, then you could be in some legal challenge if you're knocking something off using AI technology. But it also, I compare and contrast that in my mind of a designer who clearly over their lifespan, and they're inspired by certain things that help educate and drive their design choices, which is not dissimilar to the AI program. And so how do you obviously navigate that as a designer? And sometimes designs get through and produced, and that leads to court cases and lawsuits. And that went through the old analog way. So it's a fascinating kind of thought exercise as to how this technology will be used, to your point, how we will learn how to use it, and what some of the legal ramifications will be. Because if everyone's using AI to design, and it's all from derivative images online to inspire, it's kind of like, are there enough Skittles color combinations in the world to allow us to produce shoes that don't knock each other off, utilizing the landscape that these algorithms are pulling from? I don't know. It's fascinating to think about what the landscape will be in the next
You
few
can
years.
teach it all the patents, and be like, don't copy any patents while you design the shoe.
Right.
Stay away from all these things. Learn this whole system. Stay away from all these things. And then if you create something new, file the patent for us directly.
Right.
I'm also interested in the politicization of this too, though, because I think it's going to be interesting to see. This is human knowledge that it's accumulated. It's going to have some human biases. And I think as this technology rolls out, it's so detailed. There's already criticism of social media platforms like Twitter, and Musk coming in and buying it because it's censoring certain people, and then the Google and others are, what results do they let you see? This is like all of that on steroids. It's giving you at least ChatGPT, giving you a highly detailed answer. And so, what type of information is it choosing to exclude? What type of information is it choosing to show you? And so I think there's going to be some criticism, and as this is unveiled, it's going to become political too. How does that play into conspiracy theories and politics? And, what if it says positive things about one person and negative things about the other? How does that work? So I think with any new technology, you've got these type of challenges, but in this hyper politicized environment, it's going to create some issues there too.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. And one big thing that I think we should point out is at our Footwear Executive Summit, our Footwear Strategy Summit in Washington, D.C., April 26th and 27th, that's fast approaching. You can learn more about this summit on shoeexecutive.com, shoeexecutive.com. But we're going to have Nicolene Van Enter, who is the founder of the Footwearists. She, worked on a factory floor making shoes at the start of her career. She's done 3D design and 3D development. She has a lab in Barcelona where she's making shoes and testing out and researching new ideas for footwear, construction, development, new types and styles. She was also a trend forecaster. So she's covered a lot of these, almost the entire footwear operation jobs. And she's going to come and talk about how AI will transform all those jobs in depth. And she's also testing out AI in her lab now with additive manufacturing and 3D printing. So it'll be fascinating to hear her talk about where it's at, where it's headed, and then help. I think this is the real challenge is we got to talk about this a bit more to figure out a strategy for utilization. Some of this for companies will be merely, I've got Microsoft Office and now AI is attached to it and it's doing things for me. So you don't need like a new system or, it should update. But we don't know. There may well be a new like AI system that a new company that forms that takes all the best parts of Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and forms a whole new tech company, a whole new tech sector that provides business solutions that we don't even know about. But the key is the more you jump into the stream of thought and think about it, the faster and more agile you'll be to understand and take advantage of those things. And the future is built by the learn, right? So if you're not curious about this stuff and you're not just keeping track of it and like watching, and not saying you have to do anything with it, but if you're focused on this a little bit more and realize the advantages, then as we go through this, you'll see opportunities quicker and faster. And you'll also be able to separate the crap that's out there from the actual things that you can take advantage of that are legitimate and are true, and will make that. But the other part that we haven't talked about is just us. We talked about it a little bit, but like we're gonna have to adjust our minds to understanding this and asking the right questions and how we utilize it appropriately. Like for a long time, we've been leaning a lot into science and math and STEAM, which I think is great. My daughter is super big into STEAM. I think she'll probably be an engineer. But we need more critical thought out of everybody coming out of college and all our talent pipelines. Like we need smart, wise people that are curious and ask strange questions about what we're doing in order to figure out and better manage these systems. Like you need a liberal arts degree in addition to whatever field of study you've done. So like we need to reshape our minds around some of this stuff for it to work appropriately and to understand it better. And I think that's my fear is it's going to dumb people down, right? Like it's going to make it easier to have something do your work for you and not have the grind. The grind is good because it teaches us things, right? We make a mistake, we learn from that, we go forward, and now the machine's doing it for us. The machine's doing the grind for us.
You're just a paper pusher. You're just moving one data set to the next and moving it around.
But the key value will be like, how do I actually use it to create a whole new set of shoes or a whole new business model for our company? That's my point. Is it's like, yeah, it can do the linear things you wanted to do for your current business, but could we launch a whole new industry of footwear that we don't even know about yet? Not, and we've had this like buzzword about NFTs and all this digital, all that stuff. And it kind of fell apart. It was there for a while, but is there something completely new around footwear that we could create, some new business model or trend or whatever that's never existed before that could like really add value to consumers and really, stretch our industry to a whole new level we don't even know about? But if we're not asking that question, we'll never get there. So more to be said, a lot more to be said, a lot more to learn and keep going. But, we kick our heels up on our desks and think about this stuff at FDRA and how it's going to impact our company so that we can just, sometimes it's not about an action item. Sometimes it's just being thoughtful about something and thinking it through. And hopefully as you listen today, like maybe you think about your job and maybe you think about your company and our industry a little bit differently. That's a positive thing. That's a win for us, for the Shoe and Show, and what we try to provide every single week. So, on behalf of Matt and Thomas and myself, we appreciate you listening to our diatribe on AI. It was not computer generated in the least, which is why it sounds so crazy. But as always, we appreciate you listening. Make sure you tune in next Monday when a new episode drops on a completely different topic as we focus on the footwear industry and all the changes that are occurring, and hopefully, just like today, being thoughtful about what's happening in our industry so it can help you think a little bit better, a little bit more clear, and find new ways forward to strengthen your job, your professional development, and our industry. So with that, Shoein is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.